guys! As you can tell from the title, we are back to semi-depressing topics. If you are new here, my name is Joanna. I am a professional musician. I teach the flute, but I do it over FaceTime, which is kind of weird. And I play in a local orchestra here in the Seattle area. And I make videos online about being a musician. So I have had two very different reactions toward music when I've been under emotional distress. The first instance where I was under a lot of distress was when my dad went to the hospital when I was 16. I'm not going to go into very much detail as to why he ended up there, but it was a work stress induced heart attack. Basically, the anxiety manifested itself as a physical heart attack. It was pretty traumatic for me because the way he left to go to the hospital was when I was cuddling up to him. I used to have daily evening cuddles with my dad after dinner. What I love to do when I cuddle is to listen to his heartbeat. I could hear the heart pumping pretty fast, but at the time I had no really prior experience as to just how fast a dangerously fast heartbeat is. I didn't really think much of it, but I did think it was kind of odd. And then suddenly, without even telling me to get off of him, he abruptly stood up and said, "I need your mom to take me to the hospital." He went to go find mom, and he told my mom that his left arm was going numb and his heart was going crazy. And the next thing I remember is watching them pull out of the garage, and that was it. I remember sitting at my desk in my room, just waiting by the phone, because at that point, we were still using landlines. I had one of those phones that had like the curly cords. I couldn't concentrate on anything, so I didn't practice. I didn't do any homework. I literally was just sitting there staring at the phone. I think it was probably an hour or two before I heard back from them. They went through the whole trying to diagnose what's going on with him. They put him through stress tests. Eventually he was transferred to a different hospital where they did, I believe, what's called an angiogram. Basically, they dye your blood and they track the dye to make sure that there's nothing in your system that's blocking blood flow. But they did tell my dad that I think it was like a 1 or 2% chance that he might be allergic to it, because 1 or 2% of the population out there is allergic to this dye. As it happens, he was allergic to it and he actually died for a moment. Obviously, as you can tell, he has appeared on this channel, so they did successfully revive him. According to my mom, when they wheeled him out to my mom, the doctor was like, "Oh, you know, his heart stopped for a moment, but he's fine now. Don't worry about it." And of course, my mom's like, excuse me? So anyway, that is the story of what happened with my dad's heart attack. Needless to say, I became very depressed. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to do art. I didn't want to practice. I didn't want to go to orchestra rehearsal. But when I went to visit my dad while he was at the hospital, he actually forbade me from skipping my lessons and from skipping orchestra rehearsal. So I went to both of my orchestra rehearsal, which was on Friday evening, and I went to my flute lesson the next morning on Saturday morning. I did it, but I just felt really empty. Like, I obviously could not concentrate because I was just wondering what was happening to my dad, and I had all these questions about what were we going to do if we lost my dad. I couldn't imagine life without my dad. I, felt more and more like this was just going to go worse and worse, and I was sort of spiraling downwards into this kind of black hole. I tried telling my teacher about it, but I'm guessing that my teacher may not have had a similar experience before, because she told me to practice to take my mind off of it. I am not the type of person who can just take my mind off of something so big. There was a very high possibility that I would lose my dad, And in fact, for a few moments, I did lose my dad, but I got him back. I can see why my flute teacher told me that. I think she was just trying to fix my problem, which I appreciate that. But it did nothing to fix the problem. And in fact, it just made me dread practicing. I felt that if I was playing the flute, then I wouldn't be paying enough attention to what's happening with my dad. If I were to lose my dad, I wanted to at least be there. And I didn't want to be consumed with my flute playing and my flute studies when really at that point, the most important thing in my life was to be there for my dad. I actually hated practicing at that point. I think I can use the word hate at that point. I hated playing the flute because I felt that it was taking away from my time with my dad. I just went to flute lessons completely unprepared, and I went to orchestra rehearsal completely unprepared, and I didn't care. There was no part of me that actually cared what was going on. I couldn't care because I was like, well, what's the point of playing all this fluty-dooty music if my dad's dying? I think maybe part of the reason why I reacted that way was because I was 16. Mentally and physically, I was still developing as a human being. And I think that was just my 16-year-old self's way of dealing with the situation because it was just too much. I kind of felt like my burden was just way too much and I just collapsed. Having been through that, I can't actually say that that is a wrong way of dealing with emotional distress when you're a musician. I don't think it's the best way. So now I want to tell you guys about the second time that I had to play music under emotional distress. This happened a few years ago. Suffice it to say that I developed an online relationship with a boy. This was before I met John, just so you guys know, and he knows about this too, so this is not a secret or anything. It just so happens that he did not live near me at all. It was a very long distance relationship, and even using the word relationship for this thing that we had probably is not even the most accurate. We were talking online for upwards of 3 to 4 hours a night. But throughout the course of this, neither of us declared our love for each other, and neither of us asked the other person out. I was too shy to ask him out, and he never made the move. But we were talking privately 3 to 4 hours a night. Eventually, I did go and meet him in person, and that was really nice too. A couple months after that, he pretty much declared his love for another lady via online means, and that lady was not me. It was a shock to me because I thought we had a thing going on, and my heart was broken completely. I realized that I had been pretty much played. You know how like most people talk about their experience when someone cheated on them with someone else? Well, in this case, I think I was that someone else. But the weird part was that he wasn't exactly going out with that girl either. I think maybe he was about to ask her out, but basically I was sort of the side girl, the convenient girl that he can talk to and have like a non-relationship with on the side, which I know to you guys sounds really messed up, and it is. Humans have a interesting kind of twisted way of making things seem not as bad to them, you know? And I think that's maybe what was going on with him. In any case, I ghosted him. Ghosted him for maybe 2 months or so. Eventually, he texted me and asked me if I was, going to go and see him again. I agreed to actually go and see him to talk about what happened because I told him that, yes, I disappeared, but it was for a good reason. And if you want to talk about it, then let's talk about it. I met up with him and we talked about it. And I told him that, yo, dude, you can't treat us ladies like that. Yes, I understand from your online post that you are in love with this other girl. And there's nothing wrong with being in love with a girl, But the thing is, you can't be in love with this girl and talk to me 3 to 4 hours a night. It doesn't work that way. In the end, I hope he got it. I went on a very passionate feminist speech in a dim sum restaurant with him. You know, the thing is, I never really realize how far my voice projects until I'm in a situation like that, because I was telling my parents afterwards that, like, my gosh, these dim sum ladies with the carts, they like never came over with the carts, and you know, they like never brought tea. Apparently this place was supposed to be really great, but then the service was like, oh. And of course my parents were like, well, you know why they didn't bring the food over, because they thought that you were just gonna pour tea and food all over him, which I wasn't. I mean, I really was trying to tell him and communicate to him that this is unacceptable behavior, and you're not only disrespecting me, but you're also disrespecting the lady that you are actually in love with. I hope he learned his lesson. I hope he is treating the women in his life right now. I don't really know what happened to him after that. In this time that I was ghosting him, it was rough. It was horrific. It was terrible. But I remembered how I had shut down when I was 16 with my dad's heart attack, and I resolved to do the opposite. So instead of internalizing all of my feelings and just shutting down and collapsing inward, I decided to just let everything out. So I told my teacher, I told my band director and my orchestra conductor. The way I told them was, there was a situation that happened to me in the romantic area of my life. I am heartbroken. And just understand that if I appear woozy, or if I look like I'm not paying attention, or if, you know, I seem a little scatterbrained, I just want you guys to know that that's why. I just wanted there to be like a very open communication about this, just so there's no misunderstanding as to what's happening to me. This particular flute teacher, Linda, the way that she approached it was not to tell me to take out my emotions on the flute, but she really just sat there and listened to me, or stood there. There was really no room in her lesson room to sit. That was just the most helpful thing. I also ended up telling my fluties. I was playing with Bruno Panunzio, that I have also featured on this channel during my time there. I think I was playing the Piazzolla, what is it called again? Histoire du Tango. So the history of tango. I was playing that with Bruno, and I told him what happened just so he also knew. I don't need them to fix the situation for me, but I just need them to be aware that this is happening to me. I'm not going to make the same mistake as last time and keep it inside of myself. And that really helped, because everyone was just so understanding. I was actually really surprised by how understanding everyone was. And I think because I was actually vocalizing what was happening to me, it was sort of the start of allowing me to express my feelings of being heartbroken and being sad, feeling like I'm unwanted, unloved. It was quite obvious how differently I played the Piazzolla from before I found out that I was this side girl, and after I found out. After I found out, the parts that are more lyrical and pensive and expressive, I played them with a lot more heart. They just came alive to me. Before that point, all slow lyrical stuff was boring to me. But after I was truly experienced my first real heartbreak, and I was old enough to realize how I should deal with it for myself, that was when I discovered that the lyrical parts that I always thought were boring were just parts of music that I had not grown into yet. Honestly, I feel like that heartbreak was one of the best things that ever happened to me as a musician. Ironically, it wasn't that I just told myself to apply all of my feelings of heartbreak into my music. It wasn't that. The thing that I told myself was, Joe, you cannot keep this in. Not only did I tell my community what was happening to me, I also did that weird thing where you talk out loud in the car to yourself. I imagined I was talking to this boy and I was just yelling at him in my car by myself. I would even stand in front of my mirror at home and yell at the mirror, pretending that I was yelling at him. I wrote about it. The one thing I told myself was, I have to get it out of my system. And music was only one of the ways I got it out of my system. When you are playing music under emotional distress, remember that you as a person You are more than just music. You cannot use music as the only way to fully express yourself, because as human beings, I think we have far too much within us to express, that not all of it can only be expressed through music. You need to let the rest out that cannot be let out in music through other means. And when you do that, the music that you play won't feel so much of a drag on you. It's not going to be the thing that takes away from you taking care of yourself. It contributes. I hope that that was helpful for you guys. If you guys have any more questions regarding this issue, please leave it in the comments below. I would love to answer it. And I would love that if you guys can answer each other too. I really love seeing that in the comments when you guys are talking to each other. If you guys like this video, make sure you give me a big thumbs up and hit subscribe for new videos every Saturday. My last video is over there, and if you want to catch me during the week, my social media networks are down there. But otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Bye.